All right, we will go ahead and get the meeting started. Call the meeting to order. If you could take roll call.
Sure, Dr. Covert is here, Miss McGee is here, Mr. Chapman's here. I believe Miss Kuby's here by Zoom. Yes, she is. And Miss McCarthy is here, and Mr. Hempstead is not here.
I can't see.
We'll go ahead and do the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So piece didn't. Let me just.
Before we move on to adoption of the agenda, have you gotten the names of the planning commission members who are here to be certified?
I do have Mr. Snyder and Mr. Thaler.
And thank you for showing up.
Let's go ahead and I need a motion to adopt or amend the agenda.
Second.
And we'll go around the table. Ms. McCarthy, Ms. McGee, Ms. Colbert, Dr.
Yeah.
Colbert.
And then Ms. Kuby.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Bernice, your picture's not on the screen.
I think she's calling in.
Not looking good.
Oh.
No. Well, we always think you're beautiful.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and do our FOIA training. We have a representative from the FOIA Council who's going to get the council certified. We have to do this every 2 years. For those that aren't aware. So we are on our 2-year mark at this point to the last time we did it publicly. So we're going to go ahead and give the floor. We're going to go ahead and give the floor to
This is Mr. Underwood.
Mr. Underwood with the FOIA Council.
Can you hear me okay? Is the sound coming through?
Yes.
Good. I can scream as loud as I need to. I have no problem with volume, but if the stuff sounding goes out, let me know, as well as audio. I've emailed a slideshow. Is that able to be uploaded for the members?
I have it printed.
Yeah, they have printed versions.
Okay. Well, I'll pull it up from my website then. Hold on. And I can go through it and we'll go real quick through there.
Excuse me for 1 second, Mr. Underwood.
No problem.
I only printed one copy of the public.
Yeah, it's going to be in our book.
I'll forward it to him. I'll forward it.
Okay,
Oh, do you want to copy?
I apologize, Mr. Underwood. You can continue while we get 2 more.
Yeah, we'll want to stay on schedule because this will be a little bit of a presentation. I'll try to keep it around an hour if we have questions. So I'm with the FOIA Advisory Council. Our information you can find on our website at foiacouncil.dls.virginia.gov. Our email address is foiacouncil@dls.virginia.gov. And you can also have our phone number is 804-698-1810. If you have questions, those are available for us for inquiries. This whole slide presentation which you have is online. It's on our website. We have it under our resource materials. We have several different slides, presentations we use and guides. So it's available for access to the public. Please feel free to, if anybody's listening who's interested, they can go there later and access it. But really today, it's kind of an overview. What I'll be giving you is we'll cover a little bit of what the FOIA Council does, the training, general on the public records, public meetings, and kind of sum up with what is the remedies under law and the resources that you need to get to.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I would also like to tell you that Ed is here also. We are out of town right now. So he's also here taking the training. I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir.
I got it.
We got it. Thank you, Bernice.
No worries. If you do have a question, you can raise your hand out there, or just when I get to pause, I'll try to pause frequently. If there's a question we can come to, I will have time at the end to answer questions as well. But just to let you know, I'm with the FOIA Council. FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act, came about in the late 60s, so it's almost 60 years old now. was kind of response to the Vietnam War and with a basically guarantees citizens access to public meetings and citizens access to records. All 50 states have adopted some form of FOIA or free they call that sunshine laws in some places. And the federal government has their own federal FOIA that applies to them. But we will be covering basically Virginia FOIA and the specifics that are tailored there for the laws involved there. This can be found, the FOIA chapter and law in Virginia Code may be found in Title 2.2, Chapter 3700. There's approximately 15 different sections there with multiple parts and sub and areas, but it covers basically what is FOIA applies to, what are public records, what are the exemptions. There are approximately 150 discretionary exemptions in FOIA. As I mentioned, most of them are discretionary, which means they're not prohibitions. Then there's the meetings requirements, which had to have open meetings, and the 55, I believe, exemptions for closed meetings or purposes to have closed meetings where the public is not able to attend. But for the most part, we start with the premise that FOIA was the policy of, is adopted by the General Assembly, is that the citizens of the Commonwealth and the media representatives will have access to public records and to public meetings by their government entities, and so that they can be government operates under the eye of the citizens and the media, and is not to be done in secrecy. So it's to be public, and the public can hold the public officials accountable for the actions that their government takes on their behalf. Since the public is the main beneficiary of any action taken by the public body, they have that right. And the FOIA Council is an advisory council of the General Assembly made of 2 members of the House of Delegates, 2 members from the Senate, and with the 10 remaining members appointed by the speakers or the governor. There's an Attorney General representative, there's media representatives, there's a local government representative, as well as citizen memberships. And when the FOIA Council meets, usually in the summer and the fall, outside of the General Assembly session, which we are in the middle of here currently, usually to discuss FOIA issues, studies, and they have the staff is 2 of us. Alan Gernhardt is the executive director. I'm the staff attorney, and we provide guidance to citizens as well as the local governments. We do trainings such as this. We provide advisory opinions, and we do presentations. But what we do not do is we do not investigate or compel compliance with FOIA. That is not in our authority. That authority resides with the courts of Virginia. They have the power to impose, to determine and enforce FOIA provisions. But the purpose is that the ready access, it's really about access. It guarantees the right that citizens have a right to, like I said, access public records and to free entry into the public meetings. It's not a constitutional right. It's not part of the 14th Amendment, as sometimes cited to us. It is a government law passed by each state. And there are exemptions to this access, and these exemptions are going to be narrowly tailored. Some of them are kind of broad categorized. There's a few exemptions that are broad, such as personnel records or attorney-client or educational records, applies to scholastic records. And then there are more narrowed exemptions, such as maybe the data of the fisheries or the apple picker growers association. So there are certain agencies that have their own exemptions that apply specifically to those. And so the key is when we interpret FOIA is that it tends to lead to openness. So any exemption is going to be narrowly tailored and narrowly construed to be applied to that specific issue that's identified within that lawful exemption cited by Virginia law and statute. Now, to be fair, there are exemptions outside of the FOIA chapter 37 of Title 2.2. There are other ones, I'll refer to them, but that's not our area of authority. So we advise on those to let you know they're out there, but they're not, we do not really offer opinions or interpret those. Well, most of you are here today because you're required to every 2 years. That's usually my audience. It's good to have a captive audience to talk to, but it is good that to kind of refresher if needed. But it's really local officials are required to have it. Local elected officials, those local appointed, are required, and certain executive directors or certain boards are required to have training every 2 years. We will. I've spoken with your clerk, and because you're signed up with us and registered with us, we can provide you a certificate. However, certificates are not required. You're just required to get the training either from us or your local attorney, and to report that to the clerk, who will maintain those records for 5 years. But it is just required that you're familiar with the FOIA law and that you have a FOIA, work through your staff with the FOIA officer there and to help provide information if requested. As I mentioned, other laws may apply. Those laws can include court records, and that's under titles, and their court records are titled under Title 16.1 and 17.1, as well as the rules of the Supreme Court. They have their own provisions. Also, there's also specific requirements for meetings of local government bodies that you may find in Title 15.2, specifically sections 1415 through 1421. But there's also the various provisions of Title 15.2 about public hearings, but that are not FOIA specifically, but they are in those code sections. School boards have their own provisions, have also other additional provisions in Title 22.1. Then there's the tax provisions. Tax information is really governed by Title 58.1-3 regarding that. There's a prohibition there. That requirement on your local tax officials regarding tax records, that one in 58.1 actually does have a criminal element, a criminal penalty element to it. So a release of certain information improperly could lead into a criminal punishment of a misdemeanor of jail time. Other provisions of FOIA, just to relax, do not involve jail time. They are civil penalties. So up to this point, I'm no one going to jail for FOIA yet. But just to be aware, there could be fiscal implications for violations. But we won't have any of those, so I'm not worried about that too much. But I just want to make sure we're out there. But the beginning is public records. What is a public record? That's going to be what you found in the definition sections of Title 2.2, Chapter 3701. And pretty much public records, pretty much any type of writing, recording, electronic, photographs, microfiche, whatever you have that was prepared or owned by or in the possession of a public body or its officers, employees, or agents. Public body would be your town council, could be the other school boards, could be zoning commissions or other entities with authority, but any public record that's in the transaction of public business. So maybe those emails regarding your office lunch plans or your lunch order, or the plans to have a birthday party or go to a barbecue, those are not public records. They're not in the transaction of public business. But any writing, recording regarding the transaction of public business would be subject to FOIA. Draft versions of records can be subject to FOIA, such as draft policies, draft minutes. Those could be subject to request by citizens and be subject to be released under FOIA. FOIA does not require your agency to answer questions or provide interviews. It's really about providing of records, to providing the information being requested by a citizen. And the citizen has the choice of either inspecting or obtaining copies. Now, to be fair, both of those can cost money. They're not free. FOIA is not, the way the statute's written, public bodies can charge for production of records. They don't have to, but they have the authority to do so. But that authority is limited about how they charge, and we'll cover a little bit of that. And then most of the discretionary exemptions we talked about are discretionary. They're not prohibitions. There are a few prohibitions. They're not really in FOIA, but the Social Security numbers, the first 5 numbers, is another part of Virginia code, such as there also information, driver's license information. Those are the prohibitions. I'll come across one of discretionary later about account numbers and rounding information on bank accounts of public bodies. That's a discretionary exemption, but I would pretty much put that in the category of prohibition because you're not going to release your accounting information, your bank accounts for your city or your agency because the dangers involved. But FOIA starts with the request, and the request can be informal or formal. It doesn't have to be in writing. Doesn't have to fill a form. A citizen can make a call in, or they can make it during a meeting. It's not required to be written down. You can't require a citizen fill out a form. You can have a form for your staff to record or document what a request is, but you can't make a citizen do that. And who are the requesters to do that? And who are the requesters? The requesters are the citizens of the Commonwealth, representatives of newspaper and magazines with circulation in the Commonwealth, as well as radio and television stations broadcasting into the Commonwealth. That covers the media out of Washington, D.C., Bristol, Tennessee, perhaps even some in West Virginia who have access into Virginia citizens. They would have right to make FOIA requests. However, the FOIA council's adopted the policy just to, that you treat out-of-state requesters as you would treat in-state requesters. And that's due to simplicity of process. You could deny strictly for not being out of state, for being an out-of-state requester. However, the out-of-state requester may have a cousin, a friend, they may have a conglomerate working in the Commonwealth that's their friend who can make the same request on their behalf, and then you'd be subject to the Virginia FOIA laws. If you work with an out-of-state requester, you can obtain money, you can obtain the payment, the cost of the records prior to release. You could also work on a more extended deadline. You're not tied to the requirements you're about to face. So the policy of FOIA is not to just strictly deny out-of-state requesters, but that is your discretion as a public body. But a requester, when they're making a request, like I said, it could be orally or through email, which is most of the case. They must identify the records with reasonable specificity. That's not a defined really term in FOIA. It's really, can you identify the records they're seeking? A lot of times you will get requests who are just, they're not necessarily sure what they're seeking, but they may ask for certain things, and you can discuss and negotiate and help clarify what they're asking for. And at that time, you can also require a name and legal address. That's how you can determine whether they're a citizen or not. You can't require a photo ID or not, but you can require them to provide a name and legal address. That's been in the law for a long time, possibly due to receiving original requests through mail and responding accordingly. But you can't make them write it down. You can write it down for them or record it. But once you receive a request and you identify that the records, it's reasonably specified that you understand what they're looking for, the public body has a duty to inform the requester that they have a right to an estimate for the cost of production of the records, and that the public body has a right to charge for those records. That's the first thing that must be done. This is also a time to clarify whether they're requesting inspection, electronic copies or paper copies or so forth. Purpose for request doesn't matter, and they don't even have to mention FOIA, but it is requesting records. But the key being is that you're able to identify them, the records they're seeking, you responded accordingly that they can ask for an estimate, and then that's when the clock starts ticking. You have public records kind of rules of five. I'll refer to them a couple times, but there's 5 working days in which to provide a response, and there are 5 permissible responses to FOIA requests. The first day after receipt of the request is day 1 of the working days, and you don't count holidays or weekends. So say, for instance, you get an email at 4 o'clock this Thursday, but due to the weather or some reason, you don't check that email until you come into the office next week, but due to the holiday, it won't be until Tuesday. Well, the first day of receipt would actually be the Wednesday. The requester, however, thought they've emailed you on Thursday evening and counting the days for you to provide the records. So it may be a good practice, best business practice, to when you notify them of the right to an estimate and the right that you charge, that you notify them of which 5 days, when can they expect the response of the records. The key being here is that if they ask for an estimate, it tolls that 5 days until an estimate is provided and accepted. So if they do want an estimate, it does kind of pause the thing, but once they accept it, the clock starts back up again. But if you fail to respond within the 5 days, that is actually considered a denial and a violation of FOIA. So you want to at least provide one of the 5 responses to FOIA that's provided in the law. Be aware you're not required to create new records. This is records they're asking that you don't have. There'll be one of the permissible responses that you can come to. But the first response is, here are your records. You provide them the records and they go on their way. Maybe you don't charge or not. Maybe it's a very inexpensive cost and you're able to provide it to them. That is the only response not required to be in written form. The following 4 other responses, that the records are being withheld entirely, and you have to approximate, you have to give the law that allows for you to withhold those records under the exemption, and kind of approximate the volume of records being withheld. That's the second answer. The third answer is that you're giving them part of the records, but you're withholding the other part of the records due to a provision in law, and you're holding a certain approximate amount of records from withholding. Then the fourth one is, like I said, you don't have to create a new record, so that's not a record you have or cannot be found. But if your body has an idea of where those records are, you have a duty to direct those requesters to contact that other public body. And then the fifth response is that you need additional time in which to respond to the request due to the volume or the complexity or due to staff limitations. And you can obtain 7 extra business work days in which to respond for a total of 12 work days in which to respond to a request. Now, to be fair, that's what the law provides. There is a ability to negotiate between the requester and the public body. You can request for more time. A requester can provide it to you. You can also reduce fees as a trade-off, perhaps a discount. FOIA allows for some negotiation in the production of records, as long as you'd want that in writing, though, through communication, most commonly email about that. So be aware of that. And then we're holding of records. If only exemption applies, must apply to the entire record. So say they have a record and it's going to be released, except the social security number is up in one corner or so forth, or some other information. You would cite that you're redacting just that portion of the record, the social security number or the other information, proprietary or confidential information, but you're releasing the rest of it, but you'd remain the document to them. Before I get to the charges, any questions about public records there? Anything regarding that? The key being is that either your office has provided it, or created it, or another public body may have created it, but it's in your possession. The key is whether the record is a transaction of public business. Okay, I'll move on to the charges. We get a lot of questions on that, and currently there's legislation to kind of amend this section of law to kind of standardize how charges can be made. It's appearing before the House tomorrow, House committee by the Senate sponsor. It's already passed the Senate. It's going forward to maybe to calculate the hours. So a public body is limited about how you can calculate charges for FOIA requests. FOIA is not considered a revenue stream. It is a net neutral at best, and I think most public bodies probably lose money on FOIA, but the best you could do is recoup your costs. And you can't charge for scholastic records, but it can only charge for those actual costs incurred by the public body. And it's actual costs incurred in accessing, duplicating, supplying, or searching of records. This is all in Title 2.2, Title 2.2-3704, subsection F is the key section here if anybody's taking notes. But that the public body has a duty to provide the records at the lowest possible cost. We've provided many advisory opinions on this issue. FOIA is considered a ministerial task. So it is considered to be at the lowest possible cost of a public body. So it's not a supervisor level of hourly wage you get to charge for review unless the supervisor is actually doing the work. It's tied to the lowest paid person usually in the office at their hourly wage, not including benefits or things, just straight out labor costs. Currently, that's the way the law is written, but it may change July 1st. But the key is I've seen a case where a requester presented us a bill they received for production of records where a public body charged them, paralegal charged 4 hours of legal review, then an attorney also charged 4 hours of legal review, which did not seem reasonable. Paralegal charging $75 an hour was quite high anyway, but the attorney charging the $200 an hour for review was kind of seen as excessive to that. In that case, I could see possibly where, a paralegal would review 4 hours, do redacting of everything needed, the attorney with 1 hour review to see that it was done properly. But courts are the ultimate determiner whether costs are reasonable, and they'll take it case by case basis in such matters. But the key is to bring it is supposed to be the lowest possible cost. As I mentioned, they are able to request an estimate, and you'll see many requests come in. I'll make the request for the records. If it's over $50, please let us know. If it is, you can let them know, and they can accept it. If a requester does not accept an estimate, after 30 days, you can consider the request withdrawn and that matter closed. However, the requester does accept it, the clock starts ticking again. And a public body is not allowed to obtain payment for those records unless it's over $200. At that time, if it's estimated to be over $200, you can require a deposit for the calculated amount to be paid prior to release of those records. That's the only case in Virginia where you can obtain payment before production of records. Most other cases, like I said, it's under $200. You would provide the records and then bill the requester at the address provided or the email, so forth, and give them 30 days. If they don't pay the 30 bill within 30 days, then any subsequent request made by the requester can be denied until that balance is paid. Some of the general exceptions for FOIA regard our personnel records, attorney-client. There's other contract negotiations, procurement information. The procurement and contract negotiations, as well as possibly purchasing and selling a property, they have kind of a time frame of when they are exempt. The negotiation stages of those processes are considered exempt to allow government bodies to obtain the best price possible for services or to obtain the best price paid for a property. However, once that process is completed, a decision is made or not made to award a contract, or the purchase of the property or selling of the property is completed, then those records do become subject to release. It's just during the negotiation stages does that exemption apply. Any questions about public records there? Okay, I guess you're saving all your questions to the end. Well, that'll give time there, but we'll move on to public meetings, which is a little bit long, a little bit substantial, but public meetings, which you're currently doing right now, provides is a meeting of at least three. If you have a member of, if you have three, well, let's get into public bodies are defined as pretty much a legislative body, authority, board, bureau, commission, district, or agency of the Commonwealth, or any political subdivision of the Commonwealth. Cities, towns, and counties, municipal councils, governing bodies of counties, school boards, planning commissions. Those are defined as public bodies. They also can include the subcommittee or the committees of any of those entities that are designated with delegated functions of the public body or to advise the public body. So if you have a subcommittee made up of your members and they're given functions to provide to advise your body, they would be subject to FOIA. Their meetings would be subject to FOIA as well. FOIA is also public bodies also include nonprofit organizations. So there are organizations, corporations that are supported wholly or principally by public funds. We've reviewed this opinion over the 25 years of FOIA. We've posted on our website 25 years of opinions, and includes approximately the general rule is 66.6% is to be determined to be principally or wholly supported by public funds. There are court cases out there where 54% could be considered wholly principally supported, but institutions such as maybe your local volunteer fire departments, maybe your Little League association, they're receiving town funds or county funds, could be considered subject to FOIA. And when their boards meet and their decisions are made, they need to be subject to their meetings, need to be compliant with the requirements of FOIA, and that the records they create are subject to FOIA. And these meetings could include work sessions, other electronic meetings such as this, but where as many as 3 members of a commission or a public body are together, or a quorum of a public body if it's less than 3. So that provision really applies to electoral boards, the 3-member boards. If you get 2 of them together, they're having a meeting. But the rule is if you have 3 of your members get together and they start discussing or transacting public business, that's the second part, that would be considered a meeting. Not to say that 3 of your members can't get together, as long as they don't start interacting, discussing, or transacting public business, it's not considered a violation. It may appear to be so, and somebody in the public may want to challenge that. But just to be aware that it's the actual the grouping of the 3 people gathering, and then as little as 3 people gathering and discussing the transacting public business in real time. That's the kind of the key thing here. I know sometimes you get questions about emails. There was a case in Virginia, Beck versus Sheldon. There was a case where 3 members got together, but they weren't discussing or interacting, transacting public business. It was not found to be a violation of FOIA. Another case involved with a chat room. They'd set up a group, maybe a discussion board to interact with each other and communicate the members of a public body regarding issues. The court found that because the communications weren't simultaneous or in real time, then it wasn't considered to have a meeting. So But there could be dangers to that. You know, if you get on there and a member starts interacting with another member, or then the third member joins, then suddenly you are having a meeting in violation. Nevertheless, that communication, that chat room was creating public records that need to be preserved and provided to a requester if asked. But group emails are sometimes a concern. It's best not to be a best business practice not to use group emails. If you do, you blind copy the members so that a response back to the administrator or the clerk. But you can have group emails without violating FOIA. Emails necessarily not considered unless they're simultaneous. There's a delay. It kind of seems more the court has held that kind of more of a delay in communication. But there is a case where, you know, if you start responding in real time with each other via email, yeah, you could cross over to that threshold and suddenly having a meeting. So we include recommendation to use emails as blind copy, respond back to the clerk, let the clerk bring it up before the next public board or the next meeting for the whole public body to consider. But the key thing will be there being real time. But gatherings of the public body, gatherings of members of the public body at other public bodies is not necessarily considered a meeting. I know you're the town council. Say you were called into the county commission, and all your members went to that. Just because you're there with together, more than 3 of you, and at the county commission, would not necessarily be a meeting violation of the town council, unless 3 of you get together and start interacting and discussing public business. So the key thing is that you can attend other meetings. You can attend ribbon cutting ceremonies. You can attend barbecues, birthday parties, office showers. You can also attend political events, speeches, debates. As long as you don't start that threshold of crossing over and discussing and transacting public business among the three of you or more, would not to be a violation. The key case in this most recently is the Gloss versus Wheeler decision that came out in 2024. The Supreme Court will determine that a county commission had an improper meeting. Most of the court's action, if you have an improper meeting, is to nullify or avoid ab initio any action taken at that, and it makes the public body redo any action or anything considered in such situations. But there is a definition for public business now for meetings, and the public business, and this definition only applies to meetings. It doesn't apply to public records. But the public business is defined as any activity a public body has undertaken or proposes to undertake on behalf of the people it represents. So that's the kind of the information you want to stay away from, any of those topics. Not to prevent that you can't talk one-on-one with your citizens. Not a problem. You can talk one-on-one with the clerk or the mayor or so forth. Not a problem. 2 of you can meet, but once you cross over the 3 members of the public body getting together, that is the key thing there. But parts of, like I mentioned, public records have rules of 5 days to respond, 5 responses. Open meetings requirements under FOIA have the rules of 3. As I mentioned, more than 3 members, you be careful. But there's 3 requirements for open meetings: are notice to the public, open to the public, and a recording of minutes. Those are the 3 requirements for open meetings under FOIA. A notice is required to include 3 things: date, time, and location. So therefore, and it must be posted in 3 locations. The notice must be posted in all 3 locations, which include the government website, if any, a permanent public location, which notices are regularly posted, and then as well as the office of the clerk of the public body or the chief administrator of the public body. So all 3 of those locations are required to have the notice. And the notice must be posted at least 3 days prior to the public meeting. So if you have a meeting on Thursday, you need to make sure notice is posted no later than Monday midnight. It doesn't count by hours. Preferably you do it during the day, but it's just 3 days before. You don't count the day of the meeting. So Monday, if you posted it, it'll be acceptable. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, you meet the requirement. Now, if you have a special or emergency meeting, notice must be posted as soon as it's posted to the members of the public body. So it must be done simultaneously. And there's also the provision that citizens can sign up for direct notice of upcoming meetings. That should be sent out with enough notice, the 3 days, for them to be able to make that as well. Any questions regarding notice? It's kind of straightforward. I've been asked before, what if you can't meet the 3 days posting requirement? Our advice was to reschedule the meeting because if you start with the train off the track, you're not going to get it back on, and there's no way to fix the time requirement there. And like I said, the court's only remedy is usually to avoid ab initio any action taken in an improperly noticed meeting, and therefore you'd have to redo anything. A citizen, and usually this comes out with a court case, and a citizen has up to 2 years under the statute of limitations under Virginia common law. So it could be 2 years later, a citizen files suit against you for an improper meeting, and everything you've done in those 2 years based on that one meeting that you noticed improperly would be void, and that could be a real problem. Yeah, so you want to avoid that. It's kind of like not having a quorum. Can't go forward with a meeting without a proper quorum. Don't go forward to me without a proper notice. It could reset the whole, upset the whole apple cart. So you'd want to make sure you get that correctly. But what is required for an open meeting? An open meeting must be allows the citizens to be able to attend freely. The citizens have the right to record, photograph, or film or reproduce the meeting. FOIA provides that. It must be open at a building open to the public where the public can attend. Now, and I noticed in the room you're in, there may be so many seats where the public could attend. Say you had a large meeting, the citizens, they all attended, and other citizens showed up, but they couldn't find a seat, or the room would not allow any more occupancy. Then you'd have a closed caption possible, hopefully, or some other process where the citizens could participate. But should those citizens who weren't able to be there should have gotten there earlier? Really, the FOIA doesn't require room capacity. It just reminds that if a citizen who gets there early enough and can attend, wants to attend a meeting, they can get to the room. The case against that is Suffolk versus Wallstrom. Was a Supreme Court case in 2024 where a school board tried to make a citizen one of two attendees. There's only two people attending the meeting. They tried to make them leave the room and go to another room where it's being closed caption and wouldn't allow them to sit in the room with them, even though there was plenty of room up where they could observe. And the Supreme Court held that the citizens had a right at the availability to be there, and unless there's other considerations, maybe COVID would be a provision, but that wasn't a requirement in this case. But the citizens have the right to be in the room with you, to observe you, and to monitor you as you vote and take actions on their behalf. Now, closed session is a different matter. Of course, there's reasons for allowing to go to a different area or to close the room off for citizens to be there, but we'll get to that in a minute. But citizens have the right to be there. And then that's the second requirement. The third requirement is recording of minutes. Minutes are only required at the open meetings. They're not required for study commissions or committees or subcommittees appointed by local school boards or governing boards, except where the membership of any commission, committee, or school board includes a majority of the governing board of school board. So there's a requirement that so subcommittees and committees might necessarily have to take minutes necessarily unless there's a core, like I said, a majority of the governing board or school board is there. Minutes for locals are required, for local public bodies are required to be posted within 7 days of final approval. FOIA doesn't talk about how long they must be posted. They're just required to be posted within 7 days of final approval. So draft minutes are not required to be posted. State agencies have to post draft minutes and final minutes, but draft minutes could be requested prior to final approval. They would be subject to the public records request, so they may be released. Now, I mentioned FOIA doesn't address how long records or how long minutes are required to be posted. FOIA doesn't address record retention. That is a Library of Virginia authority. That's under the Public Records Act. That is about record retention. And I'm going to kind of flash back here to public records. FOIA just provides that if you have public records that you've created or own or in your possession, they are subject to FOIA. Say if you follow your schedule of retention of records, properly destroying records under the law of Public Records Act and in accordance with the schedule provided by the Library of Virginia, then those records are not, you no longer have them, you're no longer subject to FOIA. For example, maybe communications are required to be kept 5 years. But if you decide to keep your communications for 10 years, and you get a request by a citizen for the public records for the last 10 years of communications, and you have those, you are required to provide them unless otherwise exempt under law. However, if you properly dispose of the older 5 years and you only have 5 years of those records, those 5 years will be all that's required to be provided to the requester if requested. So we encourage best practice, know your schedules for retention, follow them, and then properly destroy the records. I had a previous employment. I was in charge of record for a certain agency, and they've been keeping them for 75 years, police officers' files. And we received a request for very old records, and it was a very bad day for a coworker of mine who had to go dig out the moldy boxes in storage. And we realized, why are we keeping records that long? And so we worked on our retention schedule and to follow that. It doesn't matter if you decide to scan them. If you keep an electronic copy of those records still, you'd be required to provide them because you're keeping public records in whatever format in an electronic database you have them in your possession. But getting back to meeting minutes, like I mentioned, it doesn't talk about how long you have to keep them, but meeting minutes are required to record the notice, which is the date, time, and location, and must be part of the minutes. Your attendance, the attendance of the public body's members that are present or absent, is recorded in the minutes. And a summary of the matters discussed, deliberated, or decided, and any votes are recorded in the minutes. And also, if there's any motions or closed meeting certification, those are also required to be in the minutes. Those are the minimum requirements. Getting to the next request is another part of the meetings is agendas. Again, FOIA doesn't describe what you put in your agenda or how you amend your agenda. Currently, there was considered some legislation to talk about amending agendas, but FOIA doesn't address how you make your agenda or parliamentary procedure. FOIA just provides that if there's a proposed agenda and there's supporting documents to go along with the agenda, then once those are prepared and provided to the members of the public body, they also need to have a copy. One paper copy needs to be available for public inspection. That is the requirement under FOIA, is that citizens have access to at least inspection of that one copy of the proposed agenda and supporting records. Now, records used for closed meetings would be exempt under FOIA, or other records exempt under law would, not provided, but any applicable other agenda or other records materials that are provided to the members would need to be available for the public to inspect if they so choose to. Any questions about that before I get into closed meetings? Okay, go straightforward. Well, closed meetings a little more special requirement within Virginia FOIA is they're identified. Like I said, mentioned there are 55 approximate reasons for having closed or authorized reasons for having closed meetings. But to begin with, a closed meeting must begin with an open meeting. So you have to have an open meeting agenda, has to be noticed, posted, notification notice of the meeting has to be posted. There's a proposed agenda on there as well. But when you have a motion, you have to have a motion to go into closed meeting. The motion has to have 3 parts. Again, meetings have rules of 3. The motion must identify the subject matter. It must state the purpose of the closed meeting. And it must also cite the applicable law that allows for those closed meetings. One of those 54 or 55 I mentioned in the statute under 3711, 2.2-3711. When that motion, it needs to be more than just reciting the statutory provision. Yeah, like I said, subject matter. For an example, say a school board needs to go to a closed meeting. They want to discuss possibly the contract with the janitorial staff that they use for the school district. Well, then a motion, a sample motion would include that we make a motion to go into closed session to discuss the janitorial contract and the personnel exemptions underplayed with that for the middle school and District 3. So a little bit of subject matter approximation. Everybody may know who the janitor is for that school or for that school district, but you don't need to mention people by names. Doesn't need that much specificity, but it needs to give a general idea of what the subject matter and the purpose of going into the closed session is about, and that the lawful purpose of that. Once that motion is made and seconded under the rules adopted by the public body, closed meeting can begin. Closed meeting is restricted only to that that topic, that subject matter identified in the motion. Minutes are not required, and if minutes are taken, they are usually exempt under a public records provision. But closed meetings you may invite in that situation I gave maybe the representative of the janitorial company that has the contract, or perhaps maybe the principal for that school was invited to add to the discussion of that consideration of that matter. So you can have persons outside of the public body themselves, including staff and attorney, to go into closed meetings. It's not just limited. It's just for the general public. But you can invite persons who maybe have add to the discussion. But that discussion, it must stick to the topic of that was identified. It must only be that. And once that discussion is complete, the public body agrees that the discussion has it's run its course and that there is a time to go back into session, back into open meeting. We often hear sometimes public bodies vote to go out of closed session. No, you can't vote off the record. You have to vote on the record. So it's just say you agree to the end of the discussion. Once you get back into open meeting, the first thing that must be done is to certify a closed meeting. Certification is basically a roll call vote by each of the members of the public body to state that only the things that were identified in the motion that were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting were that. That certification is not a vote to pass or fail. It's just a certification vote to agree or disagree. It doesn't matter whether all agree or not everybody agrees. It's just that you take a vote of that. The certification was done properly, that the closed meeting was closed, and that you discussed that, and that vote is important to make sure, because if you don't properly certify a meeting, then there could be a violation of FOIA, which is $1,000. That's one of the heftier civil penalties under the law. So the first thing you want to do is do certification of a closed meeting, and then after the certification vote, then you can consider any motions or take action on the matter discussed. And that's a subsequent vote. We've seen minutes of meetings where a public body has come out of the closed meeting. They made a motion to certify, then they also made a motion to take some action, and they had one vote, and it was unclear whether they were certifying or taking action, and that would be an improper certification under the law. So you want to make sure there's separate steps taken. And as mentioned, voting is required pursuant to Title 2.2-3710. All votes are required to be on record. It doesn't matter if it's roll call vote or by voice vote of a majority or not, but as long as it's not a written or secret votes. And the decisions in closed meetings are not effective until you take a vote or take a matter, some kind of action taken by the full board in an open meeting. That's the requirements of 2.2-3711B. Some of the items that may be discussed in closed meetings are personnel, maybe scholastic records or students, the consideration or acquisition or disposition of real property. That's what I mentioned about the discussion of selling of purchasing or selling property can be considered. But however, once that decision is finalized, then those records usually become subject to release. But the discussion of it, consideration of it, as well as a consideration of a contract or recruiting of businesses, maybe actual probable litigation or other specific legal matters of public safety. But once, like I said, once a decision to award a contract or not to award the contract is made, then those records usually become released. But the final decision would need to be taken, but the discussion of it needs to be maybe done in private, but a vote to actually adopt it or take action would need to be an open meeting and on the record. Any questions regarding that?
Hey,
Yes.
hey, good evening. My name's Robert Sproul. I'm the town attorney. So I appreciate you giving this presentation. As far as the motion, when you're going into closed session under A7 or A8, how specific should that motion get?
I'm going to let me see. Let me get into let me make sure I'm pulling up the right statute section there. And you're talking about Is that legal matters?
Yes.
11. I have to say we've issued several opinions on this on kind of the topic. A7 or A8. It would need to probably be identified. You know, the actual probable litigation probably needs a little bit more that it's not possible litigation, it's actual probable litigation. So you kind of need to be able to identify that, we're facing an issue with the school, with the library about the reading list. Something like that, enough to identify a topic, a subject matter, but not necessarily mentioning maybe who's going to lawsuit or so forth or whatever. You'd have to mention if there's a certain citizen that's leading the charge or a certain group. You might, if you want to, you can get as specific as you want to in that matter. I did have one town ask me when they were going to discuss personnel of the clerk staff. They said we only have two ladies in our clerk staff. Everybody knows who we're talking about. Well, I can't help that you have a two-person staff. Small towns, that's the burden of small towns. But you just need to be able, the public will be able to know that, okay, the subject matter is regarding litigation. It's kind of on this topic matter purpose, so that'd be authorized to have a closed meeting on, if that makes sense. Legal counsel, just, there's a kind of a second part of that number 8 is about just because an attorney's talking to you doesn't count for legal counsel. It has to be really about a legal matter, if that makes sense. All communications with your attorney is not necessarily all attorney-client privilege. It's just some of it's just communication. But regarding certain legal tactics or so forth, may be something that is under the consideration of attorney-client privilege and so forth, if that makes sense. Enough to be able to, like I said, a court's going to look at whether you identified a subject matter purpose and stated properly the code section, whether you can withstand, how do you feel like, how strong is that? Usually it's best to write out the motion beforehand or to look at maybe you reviewing as the legal counsel to make sure it meets enough criteria where you think you could defend that to a court and say that's reasonable. They had an idea of what it was, but it's not necessarily providing the decision of the board at that time, because you're still, like I said, you're going to discuss and consider actions or maybe options. So like I say, we're going to sell the property or not. Well, we're going to go in to look at the bids, really, not whether you're going to sell or not, because you may not like the bids. You may not be selling it. It may end up being, so you want to give enough where you can say, I can identify the subject matter and the topic, but not so much where you maybe reveal one propensity or another, if that makes sense. Does that clarify a little bit enough, a little bit better?
Yes, yes. So not the general topic or the subject of the discussion, but not necessarily what the discussion is going to be about with regards to that.
Right, you got to give enough where a person who's looking at the minutes, because that's usually what's going to happen. They're going to look back at it, and what is the record? Oh, okay, they were going to discuss an illegal issue involving personnel at the school or property disposition, or maybe a potential lawsuit regarding the public books at the public library. Not necessarily which books you're discussing or what your actions you're going to take or so forth, but just that the general is able the subject matter and the purpose. It's more than just repeating the statute. Does that make sense? If you just recited the statutory provision, that's not enough information. You need to get a little bit more than that. How much more? FOIA gives you a little discretion on that, and our opinions kind of go into it. Like I said, you can go in and say we're going to talk about the chicken, but not necessarily talking about the breast, the wings, the thighs, or the leg. You know what I'm saying? It's enough idea that was being considered. Is that helpful? I hope.
Yes, yes.
Kind of colloquial there. I apologize, but but want to make sure I get a little bit of an idea of what's needed. But once the key part about the closing is you kind of got to think is that certification is the third part of that. Like I said, you go into the meeting, you got the motion. Second part, you stick to that topic in the closed meeting, and then the third thing, you certify it. Those are really the three requirements for a closed meeting. And you don't vote; you vote in the open record on the open meeting. Okay, those are the last things. Going on to electronic meetings, there are really three types of electronic meetings. I know for being a public body, one of them is not really open to town councils, but the first one is remote participation meetings where members are eligible to attend remotely, but the quorum of the board is meeting in person. So in this situation today, like I say, you have members maybe attending through virtual means. That's legitimate as long as you have a quorum present in the location where you are and the public can attend that location where the quorum of the board is. There are four reasons to allow for under the FOIA that allows for remote participation. The first one being a personal matter. That is limited to being only twice per calendar year or 25% of the meetings. Personal matter, when it's used, needs to be more than to say it's personal. You need to say, I'm out of town on business, or I'm on vacation, or I'm attending a funeral, something more than just personal, and that identifies that. The medical condition of a disability of a member or a medical condition of a family member of the member that prevents their attendance, those don't need specific specifications because you get into HIPAA disclosure and so forth. But those also, if you have members who are considered, the law was changed last year that if you have a member who is considered disabled or a caregiver for a disabled person, then those persons will count towards the quorum, even though they're pretending remotely. They're allowed to participate because due to those circumstances. The fourth reason is that principal, maybe residence is 60 miles away. Perhaps you're having a remote meeting in Virginia Beach or the Homestead or somewhere else, or going to Richmond. If it's more than 60 miles from the main location, you can use that as a reason to participate remotely. Nevertheless, before you have a remote participation, you must annually adopt a policy. And that policy is to be applied equally and fairly to all the members. And the process for appealing that to the full board if it's denied by the quorum or however you go about doing so. But it doesn't restrict the participation of the members participating remotely. But that policy, again, must be adopted annually now before you can actually have remote participation meetings. Same thing for all virtual meetings. That's where the boards participate all virtually. To be fair, all virtual meetings are not available. There are certain boards that may not use all virtual. Local governing bodies, local school boards, planning commissions, architectural review boards, zoning appeal boards, or boards with authority to deny, revoke, or suspend a professional occupation. They're not allowed to use remotes, all virtual. So I'm not going to go into that because that doesn't apply to the town council because you're a local governing body. That also requires a policy adopted annually, and it allows for 50% of the meetings or twice no more than back to back, but you can use twice a year. Up to 50% of a meeting can be used for that. But I know your board, the town council, not eligible to use all virtual by the statute, so I won't get into that. But then there's a final one is the under states of emergency. The governor or a local calls a state of emergency. This one does not require a policy. In that case, you just have your statement of purpose or necessity at the beginning of the meeting to state that you're meeting to provide the continuity of operations of the public body and discharge its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities under law. That will, you can use that. You don't have to have a policy adopted. It will allow in that case all virtual for everybody. In that case, that's what we use a lot during COVID. But those states of emergencies would allow for limited purposes as long as that state of emergency was in effect. You could meet virtually. But maybe the snowstorm will allow. If you're having the meeting, the snowstorm coming up, maybe it was as big as they say it's going to be. Who knows? That could be a situation. We had a big one, or like I said, the hurricane again, like we did face this past year, destroys a segment of the state like it did. They would need to meet. But we have an electronics meetings guide. We also have other guides on our website that are available. We have a charges guide to help guide you about calculating charges. We have a social media guide for use of social media. We have guides on use and retention of emails, personal emails. I know personal emails is kind of a situation in personal cell phones. We encourage best business practices that You use your government emails. You have a government issued phone. Of course, that's not always the case. You can use, I'm saying there's occasions where people do use their personal email. Now, what that does is that you're creating a public record when you send an email from your personal email account. If you're conducting or transacting public business, that email would be considered a public record. You could forward that to the clerk for retention because you're supposed to retain public records for a certain amount of period under the Public Records Act. But that you keep track of that if you do so. Similar if you did text messages. If you're transacting public business text messages, those text messages can be considered public records because it's a digital record of that transaction or that conversation. Similar like it would be an email. We don't encourage it. It doesn't necessarily open your whole personal device or your whole personal email account to open to subject to FOIA. Like I said, FOIA applies to public records, which are those records in the transaction of public business. So really, if a requester says, I want all your emails, really what they're saying is, I want all your emails that are public records. That's what it applies to. Any questions about that?
I do. If you wouldn't mind just repeating the FOIA's best practice advice on personal emails, if you could just repeat that for our edification, that would be great.
Right. I mean, so I know not everybody has government issued emails, and not all agencies do. Not everybody has them. But if you're using your personal email to conduct, transact public business, you're creating public records whenever you send that email itself. So that would be a record retention. I mean, that's something you'd want to forward to the clerk, or maybe you have a government web address, but you're using your personal email. Forward it to your government email address, and if there's somehow you're retaining that public record, then you could delete your personal email. So for years, I had to carry two phones. I had a work phone for government work and for my personal phone, and I kept them separate. That's the best practice. But sometimes it's not the case. But if you ever use your personal email or personal phone, you'd want to make sure you forward that to your, like I said, your government email or government phone to keep that record. Because what you're doing is you're creating a public record via on your personal email account. Now, like I said, it doesn't open all your emails in your personal email account. That, like I said, if you're it's like if you're sitting around a board meeting right now and I'm doing a presentation and you're writing down notes about what I talk about, you're creating a public record of the discussion. If you're sitting there writing your grocery list for later today, when you're going to get on the way home, that's not a public record because that's not transacted public business. That's your personal grocery list. So that wouldn't really consider a public record. So it's kind of the same thing, record retention and so forth. Is that clear? Does that make sense to you?
It is. I just want to clarify for public record that FOIA Advisory Council does not recommend use of personal emails.
Right. And I think we have a guide on that and policy. It just creates a difficulty because you're going to get a request for emails of emails of public business on a topic. And if you use your personal email, you're going to have to go back and dig through that and find out. For me, it was easier for 2 years for 10 years to keep them separate. And that may be the best way to get in that habit of using that government issued email or so forth, and or government phone, if you have one, to keep that. That is
You
it.
accidentally do it from your personal email, you can rectify that by just forwarding that to your town email and then trying to remember to use your town email.
Well, that's the key because what it is, it's not that you're violating FOIA, but if say you did send a personal email from an email doing public business from your email and you send it out, then you delete that. Well, you just destroyed a public record. And that's public record retention. It's a communication. I don't know how many years you're supposed to keep them. You have a record retention, and that's what the violation is. It's not really a FOIA violation necessarily, but you're not retaining the records like you're required to. So FOIA just encourages you the best way to keep it is to be clear and separate and be able to keep track of that. We don't want you to violate I don't want you to get in trouble with my friend Chad. I don't want to know at the Library of Virginia either. When you ask him how I'm supposed to keep records, like I said, communications, emails may be kept 5 years. Now, if it's 10 years later, and even when then, you're supposed to get all three approval prior to destroying records. So that's what you have to do even when you do that. So, yes.
And sorry, Rob, go. Were you gonna? And willful failure to turn it over from any of their devices, they could be fined personally, correct?
Well, yeah, we can get to, I'm about to get to the remedies and penalties and kind of cover, but yeah, there was, now I want to tell you a story. This is a story that came up in December. City of Norfolk Transit Authority had 5 employees. They gave them 5 cell phones. and they had a policy adopted. Don't use your personal emails or personal phones to conduct public business. Use the we give you. And they received a request from a citizen, was requesting all emails from these employees from it was submitted to their employer. The employer responded, okay, we'll provide you these. They have their work phone. We'll give you that. And the citizen sued saying, no, you need to look at their personal devices. Well, the circuit court in Norfolk, it's just a circuit court case, not a Supreme Court case or an appellate court case. The circuit court case, the judge determined that the public body didn't have a duty to go search people's personal emails or personal phones. That because they had a policy, because they had issued phones, that there was no expectation of the public body to have to go do that. And there's no, and the requester had no belief or did not present any evidence to believe that there was communications on their personal devices. So the circuit court ruled there was no duty there, that the policy adopted by the public body, the Transit Authority of Norfolk, was okay. They provided what they were supposed to. There was no violation of FOIA and dismissed the matter. However, if you change the facts of the matter, say there was personal emails sent on the personal accounts, and they could show that there was and that they didn't provide them, then you could get to like maybe there was a FOIA violation. So you got to look at how the facts could change the outcome. People call us for questions and information a lot of times in our opinion, and we provide that. If you change the facts, our answers can change. That court case was a good example. There is no duty to require of a public body to search a citizen's private phones if there's no expectation that they're using them, they're not using them for business. However, if they were expecting, they do anticipate that they're using them for personal business, that might have changed their expectation of the public body. But it does fall upon the member. In this situation, you have elected members who have their own devices. It does fall upon them. They'll reflect upon the whole public body. So you want to make sure you do communicate that. When I know, like you said, those 5 days, when you get a request, come in and start quickly 5 work days. If you get a request, you notify the members, and the members take 2 or 3 days to search their emails or search their thing to respond to your request. Suddenly you're on day 5 and you're trying to come up with an answer, and you're tired of knowing whether it's properly responding to the FOIA request. So it does work to help that if you could go to one place, you know where everything is, you're able to access it quickly and provide it to the staff, and therefore be able to provide to the public body to turn over to the requester. Yes, that would be the best business practice. Of course, you can always get the 7 additional days, but sometimes that just delays the impact. But you do, those 5 days do come quickly for staff when those requests come in. Now, when I say a request comes in, like I said, requesters sometimes request all emails regarding this. We recommend that the law provides it to be reasonably specific. Narrow your request down by date, subject matter, topic, anything to narrow that request. Because it's too broad, nobody can find it. It takes too much data. You'll find requesters want to order the whole cow instead of maybe just ordering the one piece of steak at a time. And we try to remind that requesters, they have multiple times. There's no limit to the amount of FOIA requests you can make. You can unlimitedly do so as long as you're willing to pay for however it is. And if you make a large request, it's going to be very expensive. You may be able to make more focused, specific requests and pay for it a little bit at a time to get what you're looking for. But FOIA only provides that the public body, the employees and their officers be reasonable and that they work with requesters. FOIA doesn't require requesters to be reasonable and work with public bodies. The duty is imposed by the law on the government officials and the staff. So unfortunately, you have to work with the requester, and hopefully they will work with you. And I think 90% of the time they will. It's that 10% of the time that drives everybody crazy. But that's the key, is that there is supposed to be some kind of give and take and to work with them, but the duty is on the public bodies, on the government officials to provide that to the requester where they seek something. Okay, well, I'll move on to remedies and penalties. Pretty much, like I said, I don't worry. Hopefully, none of y'all will have any problem with this. But really, the only remedy under FOIA enforcement of FOIA is through the courts. A requester feels that their rights have been violated, that their FOIA rights have not been followed. Either they've requested records and were denied, or they feel something was done. The only remedy under the law is to file a petition in either general sessions or circuit court of the jurisdiction of where they're located or the public body is located. And they can seek a petition for a mandamus or injunction. A writ of mandamus is to compel a public official or employee to do something. An injunction is prohibits you from to keep you from doing something. It's up to the petitioner. They get to choose. They file it. All they need to file is that with a statement of good faith, an affidavit of good faith. And at that point, a court will take the matter, and then they will turn to the public body and say, prove your case that you're innocent. It's different than civil court. In civil court, a petitioner has to actually show harm. They have the burden of proof to show their rights were violated. In FOIA, really the burden comes on to the public body to show that they were compliant and they provided and acted in accordance with the law. Fortunately, in that Norfolk case, where I'm talking about the personal, Norfolk had a policy. They'd shown that they'd given them phones. They didn't have any expectations of the employees not to be using it. The burden was they proved to the court that was sufficient, and the court believed them. And then the petitioner had nothing to counter that, no cause to believe that there was any other ways or proof or expectation that they weren't doing it. So just be aware, like versus civil court, where a petitioner has to have the burden, and FOIA, the public body has to have the defense, has the burden to show that they're innocent and that they've complied with the law. Nobody's really innocent, right? Correct. But we're to show that we complied with the law. That's the key thing. There's a burden of proof there. Anyway, yes, there are civil penalties if a court finds that there's a violation. The petitioner has to substantially prevail, and there has to be no unjust cause for the awarding of attorney fees, court calls, or civil fees. That the attorney petitioner can write to the attorney their court costs if they substantially prevail and there's no undue just cause for not rewarding that. Courts do that often. They award attorneys fees and court costs. Courts, not saying they won't, but when they do enact violations against a public body, they do see it as kind of a public tax. We've heard of requesters not wanting to sue their public bodies because it's just going to cost the taxpayers more money, because that's who end up paying the civil penalties, who end up paying the court cost. So there is knowing that but there is the law provisions that if there's a violation, it can be $500 to $2,000 for the first violation. Second violations could be $2,000 to $5,000. This money goes to the literary fund. So hopefully there's not a problem there. If there's the improper alteration or destruction of public records, as I mentioned, if you delete your communications on your personal email and so forth, it could be up to $100 per record, in addition to other penalties. So these can all be enacted by the courts against public officials and the public bodies. We all like literacy, but we don't want to fund them with FOIA violations. So that's it. And I can mention one of the more civil ones is failure to certify a closed meeting is $1,000 civil penalty. So we just want to make sure that's out there. But that's kind of the summary there. That's the end of really my FOIA presentation. I'm glad to answer questions, especially specific. If I said something that kind of made your ears pop up or you have questions about, I'd be glad to answer you. If not, if you're bashful, you can call me tomorrow, call our office, email me. I'd be glad to talk to you as well, give you any answers or discuss it with you. Phone calls are good. We try to answer them daily and respond within, like I said, we hold ourselves to respond within the 5 days as possible. If you do get a request, please don't wait to day 4 or 5 to reach out to me to help you. I can try to help you, but who knows what may happen. Something may pop up and I may be able to get to you. But if you get one and it's really kind of you have some questions about or concerns, we're glad to help guide you through that. But we'd like to, like I said, provide you the best information. But we are not in enforcement. We're not, like I said, we'll give you what we interpret, what we find out with the Supreme Court of Virginia and other courts, how they've ruled on certain matters, and provide you the best guidance we can under the current law and the current FOIA status in the Commonwealth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Does
you.
anybody have any questions?
No, I think
Well, okay, you'll get your certificates in a couple of weeks. We're in the middle of session, so if that's usually the next question. When do I get my certificate? Well, we'll take care of it, but it'll probably be about a month or so. We're currently in the middle of we don't have, like I said, we we get allocated staff that works with the other Division of Legislative Services, who works with the senators and the House representatives. So we don't really have our own staff full time to help us. So it kind of delays some actions like that. But we'll get to you as soon as we can. But like I said, please look at our website. You can go to the LIS website and pull out the Virginia code and you find the FOIA chapter. And there's a lot there, and we can be able to talk through and help you if you have any questions. Thank you very much, and appreciate you having me tonight.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming. We really appreciate it. It's very good. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, does council want to take a brief recess or do we want to dive right into?
It was advertised a 2-hour meeting and
So do we want to take a recess until?
For 45 minutes.
I mean, it was advertised a 2-hour meeting.
It was advertised.
It says,
was just-
approximately.
Yeah.
So if we start, we're gonna cause some conflict.
For her, just,
You know,
well, him said coming at 8:30, but that was his choice. He
It's
could
his
have sat
choice.
here and waited. He could have attended. He has a choice.
Well,
But
I will leave it up
otherwise,
I will leave it up to the majority.
I wouldn't mind powdering my nose. I don't want to do it for
Do we want
45
to take
minutes.
10
however.
minutes and reach out to Mr. Hempstead?
Can we put it on our webpage that it's over and that we're,
We
whatever,
can put it on.
we're moving forward?
That's great, but I think 45 minutes is.
I agree. You okay? So, all right, let's do a 10-minute recess.
hey,
That was actually pretty good. He got a lot covered in 1 hour. That was pretty impressive.
All right, I'm gonna
Bernice, can you hear us?
We're on,
We're good. They can hear us, they can see us,
Okay.
and we're recording.
All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve minutes from 9/26/24.
So I'll let you know, everything, we had it muted and video off when we went to close, or not closed, to take to recess. So if you want to say that we're back and ask the same questions again,
Oh,
so
okay.
this time it is.
Call the meeting back to order. And we're just going to move on with the agenda. Mr. Hempstead has been emailed that the training ended sooner than anticipated. And I'm looking for a motion to approve the 9/26 minutes as presented.
we're not having overtime.
Approve or amend.
We didn't.
Lord. So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. I need a second.
We skipped public comment.
Oh, I am.
So sorry.
Let's go ahead and finish.
Step on it.
Have the motion and then we'll jump back.
Let's do that. We can just do these real quick. Is that okay with you guys?
Olivia seconded it and I'll take a vote. Bernice,
Yes.
Yes.
abstain because you. I was not inside. Abstain because you don't like it at the time. Okay. All right, I apologize
Did
to the
you
public
vote?
for making you wait. Oh, and I approve. Sorry, I forgot I'm supposed to vote tonight.
He's in training.
I apologize to the public for forgetting the public comment section. Do we have anybody signed up to speak for public comment?
No.
All right, then moving on. Did you want to see us? No, no. Okay. Did anybody on council want to make a public comments? Okay, so then we'll move into the minutes for 10/7/24.
And I'll make a motion that they be accepted.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second by Ms. McCarthy? Bernice?
Yes, takes me a minute to unmute.
Sure, no problem. Michelle?
Yes.
Becky? And yes, I'm gonna get there, I promise.
I would like to make a motion, and I'm gonna do this because Ms. Dorman inherited a backlog of minutes when she came. And in order not to overwhelm us, she's been giving us like one extra a month, but we're still have this backlog because that's only one a month, but I'm just gonna recommend that next month we just blitz through them all and catch up. So that, because it appears that we're, like really far behind, but they're sitting there drafted, waiting to be voted on, that we just vote on them all next month and just get current.
Are we comfortable with that, Stephanie? Are you?
I mean, I am, but just so you guys know, you gotta think there's a backlog from,
She's not behind. They are not behind. It's just that we were titrating them just a little at a time and, we don't want to make it look like it's them because it's not. It's just, we had asked them to do it more slowly, but could we go ahead and catch up?
I mean,
I'm comfortable with that, councilors.
I mean, I'm interested to hear.
I don't know the exact number of meetings between now and October 7th. I know we've had a lot of double meetings or even 3. So if you guys are good with a large load of minutes,
Or to read and.
yeah, I'm happy to do it. They're drafted, waiting in a,
Or half and half, depending on how many there are.
but yeah, if you guys want to say, let's do 5 or something, if you, whatever you guys want. I don't know. I just,
Want to just look and see and then just pick a number?
Why don't we put them on the agenda for next month? And we can always choose to table them if it's too much. We
Okay.
can kind of weed through them and let's try to get an even clean slate moving forward. But if it's, 50 sets of minutes, it's not going to be that many. But, if we feel like it's too much, then we can table them for the next meeting. But let's get a feel for what we have out there that's not.
okay.
Does that sound reasonable for council? And you're comfortable with that?
I mean, they're all drafted, ready to go. So
All right, the next topic of discussion is appointment of the mayor.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Ron Chapman as mayor.
Thank you, Bernice. We'll go around the room, Bernice,
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I hope that I will represent you all as council professionally and efficiently. I'm not saying I won't make mistakes, because the error is human, but it will never be from a place of malice or mistrust. That much I can guarantee you.
Can we do the vice mayor tonight?
So I want to add 2 things to the agenda with council's approval. One would be appointment of a vice mayor. And then the second would be advertising the seat that I will vacate once I've certified.
can you just for the record, you abstain, I guess, on that vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
You have to do a reason. You have to say
Well, it's about me.
conflict.
Conflict, yeah.
It just wasn't said, so I wanted
Is
to.
council comfortable adding the 2 additional items to the agenda, one being the vice mayor appointment, second being an open seat that I will
Yes.
vacate.
Yes.
I will submit my letter of resignation to the town manager in the next 24 hours
Yes.
to officially vacate that seat. All right, so I will open it up to council to discuss any options for vice mayor.
I'll make a motion to nominate Michelle Coker.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? Then I will do a
Yes,
roll.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I really do feel that Ms. Covert has a problem with several constituents in town with her closures of streets and her request of easements. And I really think that that ought to be resolved before she took a place of prominence. Thank you.
See no reason why Michelle can't be vice mayor and have own land too. It's two different things. I have no problem with her.
That's not owning land. That's asking for a favor.
She's not asking for a favor that I can see.
That road is open. It's not open and it's not landlocked. If she wants to open the road, she should open the road.
This is not the night to discuss.
So,
the
yeah,
road
we're not gonna discuss,
But she's got a lot of people that live around there that are upset.
because they made him upset.
we're not discussing zoning tonight. We're discussing appointment of a vice mayor. Are there any other general comments on the appointment of the vice mayor? So I have a motion and a second. I'll go around the room.
Yes. Yes.
You can vote.
Abstain.
Okay. Bernice?
No.
You could vote.
So yes.
Thank you.
The second addition to the agenda was the open seat that I will vacate once I have taken the oath as mayor. I just think we need to authorize the town staff to go ahead and advertise that position.
Yeah.
Remembering that we have the 45 days from the date that I get certified. Now with the storm coming tomorrow, I'm not going down to Louisa in 10 inches of snow. So I will go as soon as the staff is able to provide that to the clerk's office and I can get there safely. But I will provide my resignation so that we can get that ball rolling. I think, Rob, does the 45 days start from tomorrow?
Tomorrow would be the first day. Sorry, Ron, because you're not, you haven't resigned that seat until you're officially made mayor. And then at that point you resign, and then the day after that would be the 45th day. So whenever you are officially sworn in as mayor, the next day after that will be the first day.
Okay, so we have a little time to process it. I still think we should get it out there to the public.
I think that it's reasonable for us to go ahead and get it out there so that people are that we're trying to fill a seat and we can start taking letters of interest sooner rather than later. I think that this council is poised to try to put together that town, and having the whole council can benefit us. And it's like Nicole, our town manager, has a.
Just a question, Rob, is it okay? I just want to be on the legal side of things, just asking questions. Is it okay for us to go ahead and advertise that we will be accepting applications for a seat, or should we wait on the advertisement until after Ron is sworn in as mayor?
You could advertise it and God forbid anything happen, then you could be advertising for multiple positions. I mean, there's no issue with advertising it now. What needs to happen is the appointment within the 45 days from whenever he is sworn in as mayor. So you could start advertising it now. That's not an issue at all.
All right, thank you.
And I'll just throw my 2 cents in. I think where you all did this last time, where you had the meeting to discuss the vacancy a week before your regular meeting, that ended up working out well, and you're not having to shuffle a lot of other meetings around or schedule 2 special meetings to try and get something, get that 7-day meeting done and then the appointment done after that. I'm just looking at your calendar. You're not with once a month. You've got February 10th tonight, obviously, then March 10th, then not again till April 14th. So I'm not a voting member, not making a motion, just throwing it out there that I thought that as far as efficiencies and legalities go, that worked well.
So if I'm looking at a calendar, the 3rd would be 7 days prior. Are you all comfortable putting a deadline for the
Yeah.
reviewing of candidates?
I'll say what day.
The 3rd,
Monday, March 3rd.
Monday, the 3rd, and then the following week would be our regular March meeting.
So we have to do by 3 p.m. and then we would have to review that evening at 6:30 and then decide at our regular meeting on the 10th.
Yeah, that worked out so well. That's such a good.
Thank you, Mr. Sproul. I agree with you. I think that's what we should do.
Well, and that gives several weeks as well for people who have interest in.
I notice the people that get stuff together, it's a full month.
We're comfortable with that. Now, also understand that the town offices are closed tomorrow, Louisa County and the schools are closed tomorrow, so it won't happen tomorrow because the staff won't be there.
Do we have to motion for that? I feel like last time we had a motion to post a vacancy.
Do we need to put it as a motion or can we just do a consensus?
It's safer to do it as a motion.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for March 3rd to be the final day for applicants. March 10th will be the night that we appoint. So Becky made the motion, Olivia seconded the motion, and I'll go around the room.
Yes.
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 Bernice,
Yes.
all right, moving on to the next item on our agenda, the treasurer's report.
Are you voting still now or no?
We just
No.
I'm not comfortable voting after being
Oh.
appointed mayor. So I'm gonna remove myself from votes at this point.
Okay.
All right, so we're looking at the treasurer's report. Open to council for discussion or questions.
Right.
Are there any questions for the staff on the treasurer's reports?
What is borderline?
Borderline, it's for maintenance stuff. It's where Hank orders some stuff.
Some of the stuff I just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the budget, it's hard to read. After getting to me, it's hard to read. Are we on budget? Are we over budget right now? Are we, can you just generally tell me or tell us what it is? Do you understand what
I do.
You can. I can. So we're generally on budget. The budget analysis revenue and expense report shows our originally adopted budget, amended budget if we amended any line item or had like an appropriation of money that we requested that was outside of the already adopted budget. And then your activity year to date and your activity month to date are money that has either we brought in as a revenue or we've paid out as an actual expense. Your current balance is the balance in that line item. So, and then your used percentages, how much we've already used. So if it's, 50%, then 50% is still left. I would like to note that we are still working through this budget and pulling everything in from bank statements and reconciling and really trying to populate this to where it needs to be, but this is the adopted budget. We also it's normal for localities or towns in their budget to do transfers within line items. to cover expenses. So we have to do that. We're working on that as well. In a perfect world, it would have already been done and we would be doing them, but we are still under this microscope of trying to figure the financial management system out as it started for us.
The new system.
Yes. Kelly has a great handle on what's going on with the numbers, where things are going, what we're doing. We also are in right at tax season, so we're having lots of payments come in and lots of water bills coming in. We're also looking for leaks because we're working with the water authority as the other town is as well, to see why there's, what the water consumption is and why it's so much. So there's lots of other things going on. I'm not minimizing that we don't need to do this, because we do. It's just we have a number of things going on in office.
Work in progress.
Becky, if you want to sit down and go over some of the numbers, we
No,
can.
fine. I just need it in my head to see
Yep.
exactly what, and that helped. And Ron and I talked about it too. I just want to,
Yeah,
grasp it.
yeah, absolutely.
I used to work at a bank, but I'm.
Well, I tell you, government accounting is so different just because of the way it has
Well, I
to be.
appreciate what y'all are doing. I compliment you all on your job.
Thank you.
I really do.
Yeah, trying to catch up, and I think that, and I know they bought that software, but then they kind of let it sit there. No, and it didn't get implemented, and it's a lot to
Yeah, the
implement.
previous.
And so,
previous.
they implement it, but then they gotta take an entire year to tweak. And that's what you're doing right
Yeah.
now. You're switching stuff back and forth and just figure out where it really goes. And
Yeah.
by next July 1st, you should have a really good sense, right?
So July 1st, when the next fiscal year budget is adopted, everything will be done within that software. We won't be converting and trying to, do everything. So that should work.
I have a question.
Mhm.
The audits, are they done yet?
So we have we've had one conference call and several emails back and forth with auditors. We have another conference call on Thursday with the auditor to go over 3 things that are left outstanding. We'll get those to
What
him.
year is it?
22.
Okay.
And it's just been one of those things where we have like 2 boxes of files that we're trying to sift through to find all the records that he needs. Once we close 22, 23 should be a little bit easier because one, we know what he's looking for. Kelly is doing a great job of record management for the finances. And then we'll know kind of where we are with him and what he's expecting. And then 24 will be a breeze. So once we get through 22 and 23, the rest of it should be a piece of cake.
And they randomly choose things
Yeah.
that they can't, because that's the point of an audit, is it's random that they can't guess, because, that's how they get accurate records. And so, and who knows, where it's been stored. We don't know. So that's part of the problem.
We're using Robinson, Palmer and Cox, right?
Yeah.
The same company that the town's used for many years.
Yep.
Are we going to get the full audit report at the end of each?
Yes, we should. Yep.
Okay.
And I just have one more statement to make. I have been working with PRA to get our money back for our grant for the water.
Right.
They called me today. There were some documents that had to be finalized that I thought were already finalized because I've already signed documents, but I had to sign another set of documents. So we should see that money coming in hopefully very soon.
Any other questions on the treasurer's report? Moving right along, we'll look at the DMV report. Any questions on the report from the DMV?
Is it around what we used to do? Is the DMV what they're doing? It seems like our numbers are down now than what we used to do.
That's I think partly because we're reporting more accurate numbers. So before So the DMV's percentage in the contract is, it's not just a flat 5% of what they get in there. It's a step down percentage. So
Or when you say revenue, then that's what we make?
mhm.
Oh,
That's our
okay, I was thinking that was the whole thing.
No, this is their actual number that we get for
When
the.
then I read the word
Yeah.
revenue.
That's right.
Sorry.
No, it's-
38,000, that is, we have
Yeah,
some
I was
timelines where it's been
thinking,
in
we
the
only
40s.
doing 38,000 and that's.
No,
what I
we
was
do.
thinking.
So they bring in, I mean, their months can be
Yeah, I'm
a
sorry.
lot.
I-
No,
I
you're
was-
fine.
I looked at it wrong.
So Kendra's reporting our actual, what the
Okay.
town's getting.
Okay, thanks. That's better.
Yeah.
And how's the staff with the DMV? Everybody's feeling.
Yeah, everything is going great.
Great.
Everyone seems to have, kind of evened out and working. We are not looking to fill a position. I think the front is going well. They're learning how to work through any projects that they have. So it's going well.
Fantastic.
Everybody feels that the work is evenly distributed
Yep.
and
Any other questions on the DMV report? We'll move right into the manager's report. And zoning administrator.
In my report, if you have questions, let me know.
Sorry. Perfect. So the sign for Whitlock Family Park, I know it says in here, I just do not have total command of what I read the other day. When are we looking to have this installed?
The 21st. No, that's the garage door. Mid-April, mid to late April, more like mid-April.
Okay.
Bernice, did you want to chime in on the plans for the park at this time?
Are we wanting to do our goals or just the plans for the ribbon cutting?
For the sign, like that weekend in May. you were just-
For the first week in May, that's the first week of the farmer's market. And so a big part of the reason why they gave the land is because of the farmer's market. So we're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony that weekend for the Whitlock family at the farmer's market. And the sign will be up at that time.
That was gonna be my next question, so I'm glad I shut up long enough for Bernice to give her report. So can we, put together a plan where we invite our Board of Supervisors representative, and maybe we can reach out to the governor's office and invite them to come? Let's try to make it a nice big ceremony. I'm happy to reach out to Governor Youngkin if you want me to, and invite him.
Adams.
And yeah, John McGuire.
McGuire and Adams.
Wayne Adams, definitely we want to get the Board of Supervisors and our reps involved. If we can get them coming to Mineral, we can get them involved in what we're trying to do. Any other questions on?
The water policy,
The
what is it? If you're late, what are you doing?
So it's attached in here.
Is it-
Before we skip to that, can I just say one thing? I'm sorry, I know that's at the front. The garage door, I just wanted to let everyone know that we are installing a garage door on the building at the park. I have reached out to Little League. If, I don't know that there's a lock automatically. If there's a lock, they'll get a key so they can get their lawnmower.
What's in there, the lawnmower?
Mhm.
Oh, so they're
Yeah.
keeping it in there to do their.
Yeah.
Is that the only thing that's being stored in there right now that they?
I mean, there's stuff in there, but that's all they're using is the lawnmower.
I would also like to say too, that I would like to, before you go inviting people, I would like to talk to the Whitlock family because I've only talked to one person to make sure that date works. So let me do that before you send out invitations.
That they what?
Absolutely.
Works.
Oh, the date works. for
Okay.
that.
Yeah, because we definitely want, I mean, that would be priority. They gave us the land, so we would definitely want.
I've
Yeah, I see your date.
cleared it. I've cleared it with one family member, but there are several.
Okay.
Okay, then the water policy. Yes, Becky, sorry.
So the water policy is,
It's a separate agenda item too on here for you
Yeah.
guys to talk about.
So let's just, let me talk about
Here, in the,
Yep.
what is that?
I'll get there. Let's talk about so we're creating, I'll get there. We're creating policies just to make sure that we have a very standard structure for our policies in town. Some of them will require council to adopt them depending on what they are. Some of them are just administrative policies for how we do things in the office. The water policy has to do with, disconnection of service, how we treat that. We are following state code with how that happens, what that means for us. We have some citizens that owe a large amount, and we need to address that. And so we need to first let them know that, we need to address it, work with them to get a plan going, a payment plan. But we have to send the notices out, and state code says that you have to send notices out by a certain time. There's a whole thing about being 30 days, 20 days out, 10 days, 60, all of it. So this policy addresses that and how we handle that in office.
Is there a hardship code with us or not?
There's not for us because council would have to develop that. And what that means is that council has to, how do you do that? You got to set up some type of application and look at it and have, what that means. I did speak to someone today. I did give them a suggestion to reach out to social services, even, Department of Health, because I don't know if they have anything for citizens. This one particular citizen does have a leak. We've addressed it. We worked with crediting some of the sewer back because it is a water pipe bust. So we were able to do that from the town's standpoint, was to give a credit for that portion of it.
I just hate for a citizen that's not able to come up with all the money and are having a hardship. It's mind-boggling that people are out here that really can't afford to live, period.
Yeah.
Much less pay a huge water bill or.
And they're different from people who know they have a leak and they're letting their leak run up, and they're completely different from that. So we have
some
to treat them
people are pride will make them not, but yet they can't pay it. So what do we do? I mean, we don't want these people to suffer.
Right.
I mean, that would break my heart.
Yeah. It is not, so that's not something that will be a council, I think, governing body of the public utility to be able to, we can all sit down and go over some stuff, have a work session on it. We can create some type of ordinance for that, what an application looks like. We can do some research to see what that looks like.
And then too, we don't want somebody to take advantage.
right.
If we have something in place, to take advantage of it just because I can get it free if I do this. We don't want that either. So, you gotta weigh everything.
I received, did you get this from like a new valve that water companies can add between the meter box and the house? For someone who like has a leak, it's a huge leak and it's just pouring all out, but you can't cut them off. And it basically titrates it down to a very small amount of water. So they get life-saving amounts of water. And it's enough to, preserve life and, drink and whatnot, but it's not enough to feed a leak. And so that's something that a lot of municipalities are installing when they're in this situation, rather than the municipality just paying for the water going and going and going if they can't do the leak. So I'll give that to you in the morning.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. This one particular situation, the pipe has completely deteriorated in the yard, and it's an enormous amount of water.
But we've repaired the leak, right?
They haven't repaired their
No.
part.
So we turned the water off. They turned their water off. I had Hank check the meter today. The meter is not running, which means water's not coming out. I don't feel comfortable turning the water off on the town side with the snow coming, but they did turn it off and the meter's not leaking. So just spinning, which means the water's not.
Right,
Turn.
it's not just continuously
Yes.
pumping into the land.
So they have looked to get it fixed. And, they got one estimate, it's extremely high. I gave some resources for them to reach out to other people. I'm doing what I can as a town manager, to try to help facilitate that. But if you give me that valve, that'll be, maybe we can.
I'll forward it to you in a few minutes. And then, another thing is, as a town person, I don't mind, like, I have a 3-gallon bottles or whatever. I can fill some up and bring it to their house. We can pour it in the toilets, or they can use it to boil stuff or whatever. And I think if enough of us did that, it certainly would get them through some things, and at least it would be there,
Right.
And, we could get them through stuff that would, whatever we need to do as a town to get them, help them through it. Because if they're feeling like they have to turn it off, at least we could, make sure that water. I think we would all do that. But I'll let me forward this to you.
That's fine.
So I'm gonna just catch up, Councilman Hempstead. We are on water public disconnect policy in the agenda. So Nicole, do you need a vote of council to approve this, or is this just an internal I don't want to say just, I feel like that's diminutive. Is this a policy within the office? What are you looking for with,
This is our kind of internal policy, but it would be, I think for me, it would make as a whole for the office to feel better if we know that council supports the policy that we've created for our public utility and what that looks like. We can look into the other stuff for hardship and create something separate for that, and that will be a council approval too. We've also had the attorney review this. Stephanie has done a great job with pulling these together. He has reviewed this and helped with language and just making sure that we're touching all of the laws around that from the state's standpoint.
I have a related question, but it's in a little bit of a different vein. So with the new operating system, are we going to be able to transition to online billing for water rather than receiving the cards in the mail?
It's probably a process we have to work with Civic Plus and figure out how to actually do all that. Because right now you can pay your bill online, you just don't see your bill online.
Didn't know.
And I'm not.
Right. And
You can't see your whole bill, but you can pay it.
right. And I would imagine that there are plenty of people who have spent longer receiving bills in the mail, but if somebody that is of a slightly younger generation, like that's a huge disparity for a lot of younger people where most things are paid purely online, bills are received online. And getting things in the mail is something that can be a little bit of a challenge.
Yep. And I think sorry to interrupt. I think we're looking at eventually diving into getting the bills emailed out.
I'd like to get EFT, it
correct?
just takes it out of your account. That was super duper cool.
only if you have the money in your account?
Well, yeah, that's true. Just saying.
But yeah, it'll be emailed to you. So
People that don't have email.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
so
a lot.
It's a lot.
they would still get paper. This is just an option. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, a lot of places you can choose
Give me
whether you
my
want a
paper,
paper bill or
I'm
whether you want it online.
Paper is always in.
Making a case for having the option of having it done all online for some people would be
I'll
very
take paper.
Yeah.
I'm old.
Mayor, I would like to say that as far as the water bills, I get county water and you can pay your bill online, but you also you can see your bill, but it does not break it down.
So it's different than ours, because ours is broken down.
Well, I don't know what our system will look like.
Oh, okay.
So they're on a different.
Yeah, they're on a much different scale, but it doesn't show you what it doesn't show you anything except for the amount of water that you used and that period of time.
I think with our system, I think it will break it down. I don't think it would just give you I think it would tell you everything. Just testing out some of the like tax billing that we did some tests with and other stuff. Even with Kelly testing out just a billing system in general, I think it's going to show you exactly the same information on the bill, but we won't know until we start that process.
So I look for a motion to approve the recommended policy from a member of council.
All right, I'm not real clear. What is the recommended policy?
It's
Exactly.
on tab J.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay.
It was only in really
Responsibilities and then going down.
Yeah.
And this is basically outlining what
Oh, just
policy
that.
the staff will take when there is a bill that is passed through for the water.
Okay, I got it.
And a lot of this, Nicole.
Oh, I know.
A lot of this
Yeah.
comes right out of state code, am I correct?
Yes.
Do we still have a business that's way behind that water field? I don't want to say the name of the business, but
I'm not sure. We can look at it. We can look at it.
For water bill.
A business
Business.
behind.
oh, okay, maybe they poured out.
I think they cut up all
You know,
jobs. Yeah, I think that everything was cut out when jobs.
So again, I'm looking for a motion to approve the policy as presented by the town staff.
Which,
The water.
And a second?
second.
We'll start with Denise.
Yes.
Nicole,
Yes.
Becky, yes. Olivia, yes. David. Yes. All right.
Oh, yep.
Before we move to the next, were you done with your town manager? I know we kind of jumped ahead to that.
No, that's fine. I just want to back up to the questions from the town hall meeting, just because there were questions at that meeting. They are on this report. I didn't put on the first first answer, what this was talking about. This is the gas pumps at Miller's Market.
No.
I believe there's been some talk about the ownership changing. I think it's the business ownership that's changed, not the owner of the property.
Right.
I got update information from the engineer, and I have passed all of that to VDOT. VDOT is looking at it, just so everyone knows.
And VDOT has 45 days to make a
Yep.
decision.
90. I think it's.
I was gonna say it's been way more than
90. It's not
45
45.
days. Yeah.
And then streetlights in the town, this is a process we have to look into, but I want everyone to know that we are looking at it. And we could, see what the plan is and probably put something in the CIP going forward. There's a cost of consideration for installation and maintenance. How is it covered? Is it covered by taxes? Is it covered by a grant? So these are all the things that go into streetlights. But I do want to address that we are looking into the streetlights because I know they are important. And that's all.
So we can, under new business, we've done the water. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped committee reports. So we'll start with Michelle.
All right, well, we kind of talked a little bit about the water shut off that she's been working on. So now we have a policy. And there's a grant that it's the regional planning grant that has a very short turnaround, and it's a large amount that each regional water planning unit can apply for. And I think it turns out to be about $8,000 or $9,000 per unit, but it's for 2 years, and that's eight something and change per year. But who's doing the actual, is it the planning?
Thomas Jefferson Planning
Yeah,
District is
they're just gonna apply for it for everybody.
for everybody. And just work on that whole
Same
application
form for
for
everybody. So they're just gonna apply for it for all the all the areas for everybody, since it's only got 6 weeks.
it's a quick
plan.
turnaround.
Yeah, so, and, so the expectation is we might get that money, and that is for procurement of, wasn't it, what was that, like planning?
It's
It's
for
like
development
planning-
planning for
Development of
water,
water planning.
which goes along with kind of like our asset management that I was talking about,
Odd.
wanting to.
So you can buy materials if they're helpful in your planning.
So kind of like our GIS system.
Yeah, but it's more for like the actual, like, I don't know if it's the materials or if
It's,
I can't.
yeah,
Let me pull
it's
it up.
kind of an odd thing. We're gonna have to look into the material, into the, because we just got the notice. So we're gonna have to look more into exactly what we get started on. We're thinking more, it's more planning than the actual materials, but you can buy materials for the planning. So like if you want to test how certain materials work in your ground, you can put some in and try them out and see how they do in your town. Or you can check which, that kind of, you can look for stuff and see what you have. It's just, to plan for your particular town and in the future. But I'm not sure exactly what. I don't think it's for, buying papers and pencil.
No.
I think it's
It's-
for actual materials for planning.
It's water supply planning is what it's for.
Well, then we could use it for, well management, or, we wanted to do some. But we have a hydrogeologist that we've been meeting with. We just met with, I wanted to report this too, that is going to, first of all, first thing we're gonna do is one of our older wells, or one of our wells that is the most recently one that we've stopped using because of a lack of production. We found out that the maintenance company who was supposed to be maintaining it said they weren't maintaining it because it was lined. Well, the truth is they're supposed to take the liner out and clean it because there's some screens down there. Well, it turns out there's some possibility the screens are clogged. And so we've asked this hydrogeologist to estimate the cause that's the problem. And he says, well, that's a pretty good place to start. So he's getting some drillers to refer to us to come down here to clean out the screens and see if that's the problem. And then we would have to unline it and, see, but, there's some possibility we can bring that one back to life. And he also feels confident we might be able to bring one or two others back to life, depending on the resources we have to put in. But we are going to have him do that. And we are applying for grants. Was it like 245,000 grants?
Yeah.
Isn't that it?
That's from
To help us pay
BDH.
for our hydrogeologist and. right?
Yeah.
So these are things that have just started. We're not hydrogeologists, so we can't convey to you a lot about hydrogeology, other than we are in the process of filling out these forms and getting the forms and meeting with the people and learning about, the hydrogeology and the drillers. And we met with many people, a money person and the hydrogeologist and the regular Virginia Rural Water Association people who brought them to us. So we will continue to meet with them and we will continue to update you. But we are in the process. It was like we might get the 90 grand, we might get the 9 grand, and we will definitely be able to at least test these wells and see if they have some potential. A couple of them are too dead. We have 6 wells. A couple of them are too old, too dead, but there's
6, I thought we had.
I know, it's like secret wells. There's secret old wells that were closed, like
Years ago.
yeah, in the 20s or something. But we can, we might be able to, there's like 2 or 3 that we can at least test to see if there is some possibility. And what happens is over the years, they compress. And I don't know, there's something that they can do to fluff them. down there, something gets compressed because they're over like milked or whatever, and it causes a compression in the soil. And what they go in and do is they make sure that there's a certain mathematical level at which you should be withdrawing water, and everybody tends to over withdraw water. And, has been doing it since the beginning of time, but now they've discovered this mathematical ratio at which you can draw from now to the end of time, and it will never collapse it if you stay there. But they didn't know that before. So now if we can get there and reinstate it and stay there, it may not be the big, lush plush amount of water, but it's a constant. Right. So if we can reinstate them to that point, then we could have a study. So these are just things that are possible, but not guaranteed or necessarily even probable. We'll see. And we're going to, keep our fingers crossed. Sure. So that's where we are on those. Anything else? Good job. Yeah. So she's finding out a lot of these things, and she got the water, the water policy going for the cutoffs, because now we have to cope with that. We've never really had one, and we need one. So we hate to cut anybody off. We're a little town. We like to work with people, but we have to draw a line somewhere. So.
Okay, so I know, Becky, you had something for cemetery?
Yes, I think I gave everybody one of these, and it's the policy of the cemetery. You will read through those, the rules, regulations, and whatever. I had Lewis working with me on cemetery committee.
Okay.
He, wait a minute, I'll read to you. He's been cleaning up the cemetery. There's been a lot of stuff blowing away, whatever. So he's trying to clean that up. And then he said he wanted me to take a look at a proposed sign that we could use at the cemetery, but he wanted to meet with me, which I have been sick, so I have not been able to do it. He said, whatever, and that's it. With that part, with the cemetery,
the sign, Becky, is like the rules and regulations.
It would be, about what you can put on the grave, what you have had tacked down, and stuff like that. I'm not sure what it says. He's been working on this for 2 years.
Like don't plant permanent things, don't put, blow away things.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's actually probably a pretty good idea, because we don't have rules,
Yeah, well,
no
this
does,
but
we don't have rules, and the kids go there sometimes. But if you don't say, you can't enforce.
Right.
And that's it.
Well,
you
I
don't
think
say.
it's like,
I think it does say no trespass.
it does have
after
this on here that you can't come in there
Yeah.
after dark.
But there's nothing at the cemetery
That
that's true.
says,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what.
and that's what we've been talking about, the sign.
Yep. And
Okay.
so I would ask, and obviously it's not my call, but we've created the sign for Whitlock Family Park. And I would like to put signs all around Mineral, where they're needed and where we want to showcase them. Like Bernice and I have been talking about the parks itself, is to kind of have the same format and, just font, color, everything, same, just to kind of establish consistency.
Awesome.
Can I add something just real quick, just so we're all on the same page? Sorry. Just wanted to let everybody know this is a red line version of the code, that it's the only change would be right here where it says the town manager. That has not been presented to council to be voted on. So I want you to know you're looking at just a red line draft. Everything else is the actual ordinance code, except obviously where it's crossed out in red.
Okay.
Just so we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Ready for my other report?
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Please.
Sorry.
Glad to say only 20 traffic stops in the whole town of Mineral.
That's because they don't truck by my house.
16 in the main street
Or at 6 o'clock.
and 4 in the back streets. So that's pretty good because we used to get like 50 on Main Street.
Wow.
Other than that, we've been very quiet in January. So that was the report that I got from Tanya.
Awesome.
Okay, for fire department, they're still working on that building. I have no idea how long it's going to be. They're working on downstairs, getting that stable, then they'll go upstairs. They're hoping to get medics back in there. Still all volunteer. The medics would be an addition to the volunteers, of course. And they're doing a good job, so.
Didn't they win first place for their holiday award?
Yes, they did.
They did a
They had
good job. It was cool
excellent
looking. It was
holiday.
super good.
That was great. My son was part of that.
I was really proud of it. You know, when you drive by and it's your fire department, and they did a good job.
Yeah,
And
so, is that takes care of me.
Awesome.
So Bernice and I have decided to partner up on beautification and parks as those committees do
Oh.
blend to each other as well. And we have Becky Vigon on beautification committee as well as our resident constituent. And for those who don't know, Becky runs the farmers market, so she's very
Perfect.
integrated into being in the town spaces as well. So we have met, our focus right now is planning for a beautification festival, as is standard for the spring, moving into the beginning of the market season. So we had talked about organizing for a couple of large item trash pickups in April leading up to that, to allow people around town to have the opportunity to freshen up and do things around their own spaces in order to prepare for that. As well as getting businesses involved. We would like to try and pull something together similar to what our town manager had done during the holiday season of encouraging businesses to get into the spirit, see who can fix up their area the nicest, kind of thing, and go from there. We had also talked about utilizing the empty space from where the building fell on Jack's, and potentially working with the master gardeners in Louisa to plan for a community garden space there as well. That would be a longer term plan where the beautification festival would be the short term immediate focus. And then moving on to longer term things after that. We had also identified setting up an adopt a sign program, particularly the town signs, and some of them do have some damage that needs to be repaired. And so working with our town manager and our maintenance crew to make sure that those are well taken care of, and then seeing if there are residents or businesses that would be interested in adopting or sponsoring.
Yeah.
Michelle, did you have another?
And economic development, which Joanne and I are Joanne and I are going to work on that. We haven't met yet. I have not found. I just not sure how to really approach it. The only thing I have so far is that, you know, we have a citizen that's interested in our recycling bin area in our empty warehouse there. And they were the Maddox Feed Store, and they are looking,
SCJ.
they're looking for a place to have their feed store, and they would like something on Main Street. They like that. They would like to rent it. And they don't mind having the recycling there, you know, moved off a little because they don't mind, you know, having the traffic there. And, you know, some people want it there, some people don't, on cancel or whatever. And I think it would be great to have a business there as opposed to nothing and just nothing sitting there.
They are really, really good.
Yeah.
They have good produce.
Yeah,
I mean,
and so,
they're
our community really is farm oriented, and I think it would be a great
In
thing.
the
And
summertime, I go there all the time.
yeah, I think it would be a good fit for our town, especially since we have a lot of empty spots in our town.
When was the last time you talked to Jason?
I don't know, it's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Saw him a couple days ago, and he said he was just want to close doors.
And he might maybe he just
Maybe
felt,
you need to reach out to him and make a deal.
well, yeah, maybe he won't be interested anymore. Maybe he's just tired of looking. But I don't know, I I'm getting, kind of mixed feedback and see whether that's an option here in the town. So I don't know. So Joanna and I need to meet, and we need to meet with the town and see if that is an option, because it belongs to the town. So the town council and the town manager would need to rent it to him. And he's looked at every other business on the town, strip, and there's just nothing that would really suit, because you need a little front thing to put your flowers and your vegetables, and then you need warehouse, for your bags of rat chow or cow chow or, goat chow or whatever. So nothing else really suits, except for that. So he's just really struggled with finding something, that fits and is reasonable, and see. So I guess we should make a decision whether we would offer that to him as opposed to let it sit in there. I mean, we've got a lot of, all of our land sits and earns no money. I mean, basically. So we should start turning that around as an economic development. We need to turn it around. We, all of our land basically or properties do nothing. So you need to change that. So,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I have an actual park committee report that I would like to give too, separate from beautification.
Yep.
If that's okay.
Yep. Are you ready now?
I am. We were supposed to set up goals. So I have set up my goals for this year for the parks. One is to establish a flea market during Saturday mornings. And Olivia is right. We are partnering together. We haven't decided whether it be Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons, but this would actually increase the flow of traffic through the park corridor, which is what we call the Little League field and the old school property and the Whitlock Family Park. And it would accommodate some of the crafters that do not meet the criteria to be in the farmers market, because the farmers market has a state criteria in order to operate, such as SNAP and, federal and state, for lack of anything else to talk, money for people who cannot afford fresh vegetables and so forth. And they allow them to come there and use those those areas that they can spend and receive fresh produce. We also, this is in the works, the town manager, we want to coordinate with the Little League to open the restrooms during the weekends and during town activities, and she's already doing that. And we talked about that. We need to establish a budget for the parks as a whole, all three of the parks on the park corridor. We can't upkeep the parks without some sort of budget. And one of those could be to revitalize the mural. And we need to place signs on all the parks with their individual names, which we are in the process of talking about that, and develop a plan for the old factory building and the old school property. Now we have talked about the old school property actually being the craft fair that would happen either in the morning or the afternoon on a Saturday, which would increase the flow of traffic in that area all day long. We would also like to place lights along the park corridor and the trees along the sidewalks, in order to just to have the atmosphere. And we would like banners that could be replaced across the road with different activities that we would have. And this came as a request from the people that actually use the farmers market. And that was, if we could have some sort of lighting around the parks for the parks themselves, maybe not just the street lights, but not necessarily as bright as on the field of the Little League, but maybe some dark sky lighting here and there, so that when it is dark that they can actually see, because sometimes they're out there in the morning before the sun comes up. And last but not least, to pave a couple of handicap parking spots. And that's the whole wish list for parks.
Awesome. Did you have anything else, Bernice?
No, that's it. I think that's a long enough list.
That's a good list. So I will speak on personnel and on the ad hoc committee for updating the bylaws and charter. Michelle and I have met and started going through the bylaws and the charter for the town. We'll have something for council to review next month. We're going to kind of go piece by piece. We're not going to do the whole thing because it's a lot. Personnel, I'm working with the town manager currently to kind of go through and vet what policies we need to update in the handbook, making sure that my goal for that is by the start of the new fiscal year, July 1, that we have an updated and approved personnel handbook for guidance for the staff. All right. Any other committee? I will make, I was made aware last week that we have to appoint a member of our elected body to the planning commission for the county, which I was not aware of. Dwayne Adams reached out and informed me that we need to do that. So I'm going to wait until we appoint the final seat to council and then kind of see where we stand and who might be interested in taking that role. So we'll revisit that. They know that it's coming. Okay. All right. So our next meeting, again, we are doing Monday, March 3rd for the.
Get one, the planning commission.
Oh, what did I?
Posting.
Our planning commission.
We actually have a vacancy on the planning commission, so we do need to authorize the town staff. Do we know who left, Nicole?
Nikki Dye.
She no longer resides in town.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
And that is a requirement to be on the planning commission. We have to reside in town. So we need to authorize the town staff to post the vacancy for the planning commission. I have a motion to do so.
So maybe.
And a second. Olivia, and I'm going to go around the table. Bernice.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Awesome. So we'll get that advertised. Alvin said you were not here. Town hall is closed tomorrow due to the weather. But basically, everybody down the part of it. But nothing will get updated tomorrow due to the office being closed. All right. So again, now I can go into our meeting to review applicants for the vacancy on council will be Monday, March 3rd at 6:30. Applicants can apply up until, did we say 3 p.m.
3.
on the 3rd? That gives you time. Council will be updated as applicants come in. And then our next meeting is March 10th at 6:30. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
No,
We have closed session.
Closed session.
Oh,
Do
that's
we?
right.
I don't know what
We do. Yep. Yes,
For what?
we do.
She's about to tell.
I forgot what we were going into closed session.
I don't know either.
Derelict building.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. If you want to go ahead and leave that.
Okay. All right, in accordance with section 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the town council convened in closed meeting to consult with legal counsel on a probable litigation related to derelict buildings in which the town may become involved, and in accordance with section 2.2-3711A8, I move that town council convene in closed meetings to consult with legal counsel on specific legal matters regarding derelict buildings requiring the provision of legal advice by counsel.
And a second?
Sorry.
So I'll go around the table for Bernice.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
What is the proposed litigation?
So can you read it again?
It was for, my understanding is for abandoned buildings.
Didn't hear you.
Abandoned buildings.
Abandoned building.
Houses, old buildings, unsafe structures.
Okay.
All right, so then going to closed session, I'll ask the public if they could step out into the lobby.
I move that council certify that in closed session just concluded, nothing was discussed except for the matters specifically identified in the motion to convene in closed session and lawfully permitted to be discussed under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act cited in that motion.
So
So certify.
I said certified.
Bernice?
Yes.
All right, one more announcement, and I should have done this earlier. Don't forget the local shop, Love Local Shop Hop, say that 5 times fast this late at night, is happening this week with all of our local businesses for Valentine's Day. So make sure you pop in and visit them, provided we are not buried under Snowmageddon.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Am I supposed to?
Yeah, because that's like $1,000 fine if we don't do it properly.
I think
That's what
Are
you
you
said.
technically a voting member?
Yeah.
I mean, just to be safe.
Oh, that's true. I so certified. Good call. Better be safe than sorry. Everybody be safe during the snowstorm.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And a second.
Right.
Seconded.
Yeah. And I have heat, I need a generator.
Thank you.
Generators, and if anybody